Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 75. To make a film is easy. To make a good film is war. To make a very good film is a miracle. Alejandro Inarritu.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my indie film hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's episode is sponsored by VideoBlocks. Now, VideoBlocks is a subscription-based stock media company that has unlimited amount of stock footage that you can download, and it is super affordable. I use this on all of my projects. It is my go-to place for stock footage. They have over 115,000 HD video clips, After Effects templates, motion graphic backgrounds, and cinegraphs. And on average, most people spend about $1 per download over the course of the year. It has the same amount of content and same kind of footage that is available on other more expensive platforms. And the best thing about it is that is 100% royalty free. Even if you cancel your subscription, you have unrestricted usage of it for your personal or commercial projects. That means films, commercials, anything you want to use it for. And you keep the download and maintain all usage rights forever. So it's completely unrestricted, guys. So if you want to get a Indie Film Hustle discount, head over to videoblocks.com/podcasts, and you can get an entire year for $99. That is an insane value, guys. So definitely check it out. So today's episode is a gut check for all of us filmmakers out there. I wanted to bring on Sebastian Twardosz on as a guest. Now, Sebastian has been in the business for a long time and has done a lot of different things, from working with Tom Cruise at his company during Tom Cruise's heyday, doing the Mission Impossibles and things like that, to teaching at USC with a great course called The Art and Commerce of Hollywood, and the kind of nuts and bolts of what it takes to make it in Hollywood. It's kind of like not a refresher course, but as a primer if you're going to get into the business. He also won a Student Academy Award back in '93 for his short film Silent Rain. He's also co-produced a ton of independent films like Small Town Saturday Night with Chris Pine, and he's a partner at Circus Road Films. Now, Circus Road Films are basically producers reps. They help filmmakers get their films out into festivals, help to get them distributions and things like that. And in the past, I did a very rough review of producers reps in one of my very early podcasts. That would be episode 4, if I'm not mistaken. And Sebastian actually called me out on it. He actually called me and started talking to me about it. And we both knew the person that kind of did me wrong. And he really explained a lot of what a good producer's rep does. So not only that, once I started doing research on Sebastian, he had so many other wonderful assets to bring to the Indie Film Hustle tribe in regards to all of his experience, his teaching at USC, all this kind of stuff. So I wanted to kind of bring him on and kind of do a gut check for all of us filmmakers on what it really takes to get in the business and to survive and thrive in the business. So without any further ado, get ready to take some notes with my interview with Sebastian Twardosz. I'd like to welcome to the show Sebastian Twardosz. I hope I didn't massacre that last name too much, Sebastian.
It was perfect, actually. Thank you, guys.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm glad to have you on the show, man. Thanks for doing the show. I really appreciate it. Sebastian and I met under interesting circumstances.
That's true. But that's how I meet all my good friends.
So I wrote many. I think almost at the beginning of Indie Film Hustle, I wrote this article about producers reps and my bad experience with one in particular, and Sebastian is a producer's rep now. He's done many things in the business, and we're going to talk all about the stuff he's done in the business. But Sebastian actually contacted me and said, "Hey, man, we're not all bad." I'm like, "I know." And then we just started talking. I'm like, and I got his perspective on what a real producer's rep does, a reputable one, and what the actual inside of that world is, as opposed to just my horrible experience. But so we're going to talk a little bit about that and talk a little about a bunch of the other stuff that Sebastian does. So Sebastian, you did a show on YouTube called The Insiders, which I have now become addicted to. Why?
Thanks.
Because you've got some amazing guests that come on, and you really you're similar to me in the sense that you're a straight shooter. You don't BS. You don't kind of dance around it. You're like, this is what it takes, guys. This is what it really takes, and to make it in the business, and boom, boom, boom. And you ask these kind of questions. So can you talk a little bit about The Insiders and tell everybody about it?
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on. That's very nice of you to say nice things. So, yeah, well, because I do a lot of different things. I mean, I teach at USC. I teach at another place called National University. I am a producer's rep. I just kind of, I just believe in paying it forward, and I try to be helpful to people. These are really just avenues of being helpful. Mm-hmm. So The Insiders, believe it or not, what's interesting, it goes right back to producer repping. If you look us up on IMDb, my co-producer on that and director of all the episodes is Kevin Hamadani. Mm-hmm. And we actually represented Kevin's film. That's how I met Kevin. He made it's true. So this is it all. It's kind of like what you do, Alex, where you do a lot of different things, but they all kind of, they're synergistic, as they say.
Yes.
So I met Kevin. We represented a film of his. It's not the best title. I hate the title, but it's a very good movie. It's called Junk. Mm-hmm. Junk, Junk.
That's a rough movie to sell.
It's a rough movie. Just the title alone did not help us sell this movie. But we did do a good job in selling it. Kevin was actually very happy. Hence, he did a show with me. That it goes back to the beginning. There are some good producer reps out there. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so what his story was, if you look up Kevin, that movie, Junk, was in a lot of film festivals, actually. He did really well on the festival circuit. And he wanted to, sell it. And, we got involved with him, and we helped him get his distributor, made the deal, etc. And he was very happy with that. And then it was probably about, Kevin's gone on to do even, additional films and shorts. And he's been like in Seattle Film Festival, in Austin, and Los Angeles Film Festival, etc. and other things. He's very good. You can and watch Junk. Oh, I should tell you, the movie is about kind of a burned out filmmaker who goes through the festival circuit.
I gotta actually watch that now.
Yeah, who goes through the whole thing of festivals, and also it's got a fantastic cameo in it. If you love movies in the 1980s, this has one of the best cameos ever.
Oh, great.
In this movie. And it's about this filmmaker's journey of making his movie, an independent film, going through the festival circuit, and then getting it released. It's literally what we're talking about.
Okay.
So it's a fantastic movie, really.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's called Junk. You can find it everywhere.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay. So anyway, so that went well, and it was about 2 years after that, maybe he started directing for this YouTube network, YouTube channel called The Lip TV. Mm-hmm. And there's some other great shows on there. One of the best shows ever about interview about documentaries. It's called BYOD, Bring Your Own Doc. Mm-hmm. It's fantastic. So if you love documentaries, you just go to YouTube and do BYOD. Anyway, Kevin was directing a lot of these. He directed quite a few of the various shows, and he asked me if I wanted to do one. And I think he got the idea because I also teach at USC. So here's how this comes full circle, because I had asked him to be a guest in one of my classes. Mm-hmm. And we had a great time. Again, no BS. We swear. We do all kinds of great stuff in my class. Mm-hmm. And he had a rocking good time. And so he thought, well, maybe we could put this on the air. Now, granted, we can't be quite as loose as we are, in a private room setting.
Sure.
But he had the idea of doing the show, and I said yes. And the reason I said yes was because of my background. I know a lot of people, like almost everybody on that show, not everyone, but almost everyone I know, personally or have worked with in some capacity. And I just knew all these people, and a lot of them I was inviting to my class. So like if you Google my name, Sebastian Twardosz, and USC, my class pops up and you see all this great list of guest speakers. And I was saying to myself, this is really cool that I could bring them into class and teach everyone. Because my class is like 2 hours of me talking and then 2 hours of the guest speaker Q&A. And so I said, I really wish more people could hear what these guys have to say. And so the idea was to just and I knew a lot of these guests because I'd done classes with them. I've had a good rapport with them. So, Kevin gave me the opportunity and he said, look, I think I can get you this show on.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
The Lip TV. And so I went in to meet with the guys who run it. This one guy, Michael Lustig, is the kind of creator, the executive producer of all of it. Mm-hmm. And they said, yeah, let's give it a shot. So I did it. We ended up doing 42 episodes. We had to take a break because I have a lot going on. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of reasons we took a break. I also want to do a different version of it ultimately. But the whole idea of the show was to kind of, really dissect the industry. And for people who really want to know like how things work or how people made it. My biggest question for everyone was always like their origin story and how did they
make it in?
Yeah, how did they get in? And then we kind of get into the weeds a little bit with some of them. But it's not meant to be entertainment tonight. The show's really meant for people who want to, make it in Hollywood. Like my students at USC or national universities, another place. Or I used to teach at UCLA too, actually. Mm-hmm. And just to kind of, have other people experience and get to know, how it's done. That's it. That was the whole impetus for the show.
It's a great show, and anybody who's interested in getting, amazing access to some amazing guests, and it's awesome. It's really, really awesome.
Well, some of the episodes are very good. Some are a little so. We didn't really have that much time. It was a little bit thrown together. Mm-hmm. And I wish when we do a 2.0 version of it, which I hope to do, mm-hmm. I have a lot of ideas for making it better. But it's pretty good. I'm happy with it.
So can you talk a little bit from your perspective? What does a producer rep do?
Okay. Well, there are different kinds of producer reps. Ultimately, their job is to help you get distribution, to like find you a distribution deal, and then to negotiate the basic terms of that. That's the ultimate job, and that's what most producer reps do. We do more than that, but that's the basics.
And you say we? Who is we?
Well, my partner Glenn Reynolds and I, and then we have a couple other people that work with us who are also partners, Alex Noe mm-hmm. And Josh Hallman. We have varied backgrounds. Glenn produced Conversations with Other Women. He started like a really successful foreign sales company. Went to law school, University of Texas, produced other movies also, and has, just been working in the business for a while. Alex Noe used to be with Film Independent and has been with various, programmer at various festivals, also a producer. I mean, if you just look at the background for us, mm-hmm. we are doing well. Josh Hallman, by the way, is really cool. I think it was 2 summers ago he won the Austin Film Festival for writing comedy spec.
Oh, nice.
He wrote. So we're all in the business too in various ways. And really what we're doing is, you make various relationships as you kind of go through. And it just turned out that we knew a lot of people who could help in terms of distribution. But like I said, we do more. Like we do a lot of festival consulting, which is a big aspect of it. And then we actually do the deals, the actual contracts. So
now you say we again, but your name, you haven't mentioned the name of your company once. I just want to make sure you get it out there.
I'm sorry. Yes, it's called Circus Road Films.
Okay. No worries. Now the situation that I was in, and the reason why we spoke heavily about that, and the negative connotation is that the person that has since been ousted from the business. Are there still, in your experience, producer reps out there who are doing that kind of negative? We talk a little bit about upfront payments and things like that. And we'll talk about what producers reps generally get charged and things like that. But the abuse that this person's and if you want to say her name, I have no problem.
I'm not going to say that. I don't think that's appropriate. But okay. I mean, when I read the article that you posted, I knew exactly who you're talking about, like instantly. And anybody who in this part of the business, because it's a very small part of the business, this particular niche mm-hmm. of it, anyone would know right away. You somehow found your way to
the worst,
a bad actor, as they say, like really probably the worst, mm-hmm. Which is unfortunate. And Although you did get a deal at the end, which is, better than not getting any deal at all.
Somewhat, I still lost money, but it was a little
Right.
deal. Yeah.
Right. Well, so, that it's just unfortunate. But are there other people like that? There's no one that I'm aware of that it's at that level, honestly. It's just, because that particular person had various filings against them in the Better Business Bureau, all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen that with anyone else. You just happen to fall into the worst. There are some other people who I'm sort of concerned with because I know the appropriate way to do this and the not appropriate way. Let me just say this. Because upfront fees in this part of the business are actually normal. But here's the thing, it's hard. It might be hard to tell from the filmmaker's side of it, I suppose. But, we don't represent movies if one, we don't like them, or two, we don't think we can get them a deal. We just will pass because there is the internet and there is, our reputations. And like for us, like I've represented other students at USC, or I've represented, some of my other professors there. Actually, my boss, and so
that must be very interesting.
Well, it was. It wasn't my direct boss, but she's definitely my superior there at the school because she's the head of the producing track. But and we did the fee and everything. But we come through for our clients, and I suppose the difference is do you just take money just to take the money, or do you take it because you really want to be helpful and you think you can be helpful? And that's kind of it for me. I'll if I think I can be helpful, then yeah, I'll do it. But if I, because some movies are, you just can't. There's just nothing we can do. So, you just have to walk away.
Right.
Also, there's some filmmakers. It's just, life might be too short. So you just have to walk away.
I know the feeling.
Again, but with you, it was very unfortunate. You just happened to fall into the wrong hands. And, I don't know what to say. I don't think most people are like that. There are some people I'm a little bit concerned with. Mm-hmm. It's true. Because, anybody can be a producer's rep. So really it's about just doing a lot of research. And I know in your case, you said you even had a recommendation or referral.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes it even tougher.
It was from a very major organization that I was a part of, and she and that producer's rep came and spoke and was recommended by the head of the organization and everything. So that was a lot of due diligence right there because I trusted the organization. It has nothing to do with the organization; it just happened to be a bad situation. But
I just don't know what to say to that because I just don't know what to say because you do have to do the due diligence.
It was really it's okay, man. It was really early on in my career. I was literally in diapers almost in the sense of in the business, and she saw me coming from a mile away, and that was what happened. And life goes on. But so with that said, what do producers reps generally charge as a general statement for representation of an indie film?
Well, what they charge depends on what they do.
Okay,
and they charge at different points. So we'll start from various places. You can get a producer rep for just 10%. Mm-hmm. But there's two kinds of reps that will work in that zone. One is the major agencies, and they're really working with movies that are pure Sundance movies that have very recognizable names in them, if not stars, just kind of moonlighting in indie films. It's very hard for what I call a true independent to get that kind of representation. It's possible, but it's very hard. Mm-hmm. And then there are the other reps who just do it at 10%. But what happens is if they can't, sell your movie in a month, or if you don't get into a major festival like Sundance, Tribeca, Toronto, or South by Southwest, they'll just drop you, and they might do it amicably, but really, it's for most, 9 out of 10 independent movies, the 10% reps are really truly not interested or are disinterested. Mm-hmm. I even have a story of one film that we represented that we did a good job on. They had signed with just a pure 10%er, and as soon as they signed, that person never called or emailed them back again. It was just purely the art of closing the deal. And they had to let that contract run out. Fortunately, because I was also trying to sign that film, mm-hmm. It's a very good film. Small film, but very good. I was also trying to sign, but they said, well, we just don't want to pay any upfront fee. I said, okay, well, if things change, let me know. But I said to him, I said, look, at the very least, just sign 3 months. I said, no more. I said, because look, if they can't get it done in 3 months, they're not ever going to do it. Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing. They were able to get their clause down to 3 months. So that 3 months later, they contacted me and said, look, we walked away because they literally told me, this guy's never called us back. And so we took on the film. In less than 2 months, we had them a deal, and they were really happy, and on and on and on. So
we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Okay, so that's the 10%ers. And mind you, that's really good if you have the right kind of film. The right kind of film basically means you have to be in the big 4 festivals, or it's got to have like some extremely marketable element to it. Mm-hmm. But this is the smallest minority of indie films. It truly is. Mm-hmm. Then there are the ones that charge fees, like us, which we do. Typically, the reps that charge fees will also do your contracts, mm-hmm. and we do that. Mm-hmm. So some will charge you up front, and I'll talk about how much in a second, and some will charge you when they sign a deal, like as soon as you sign a deal. And it could vary. Basically, the magic number seems to fall between 5 and 10,000. Mm-hmm. It really does vary. Also, depending on, there's so many factors that go into it. So, but that number seems to fall between 5 and 10, which is where we are. And then, for us, we do another thing. So that's most reps. Most reps, it's really just about making the deal, finding your distribution, and which I said is the main thing. But with us, we do more. Like one of the main things that I do is festival consulting, and I do a lot of festival consulting. Now, you can just hire a film festival consultant separately, and that could run you $500 to $1,000 a month.
Right.
A month. It really can. And so what we do is we do festival consulting, we do the distribution submissions, and then we do the contracts, all 3 wrapped into our fee. And I think we are well worth it. I kind of use like my class as an example. Like to get me in my class at USC, you could just look this up. My class there costs $6,500, mm-hmm. which is a lot of money. But mind you, this class is a really good class. So if you watch any of the Insiders episodes, it is way better than even that because you're just getting a small taste of it. Mm-hmm. Not getting the real, the kind of stuff you can say off screen, right. And also all the stuff before that we talk about. So, you have to put it in the context for what you're getting, what the person's actually doing, and what they can charge for. Because look, we don't have to help you get into a festival. The reason we do it, I'll tell you why we do it. We do it for a couple reasons. One, it can help to sell your film if you get into the right festival. Mm-hmm. 2, it's good for you in your career. It will help you advance your career. And really, if you look at me specifically, I'm teaching. Believe me, I'm not teaching for the money. I make more money doing, Circus Road or doing other things that I do than I do teaching. I do teaching because I'm trying to pay it forward, and I love this business, and I want to make it easier for people than it was for me, basically. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the...
Same here.
That's basically what it is. My whole thing is like remembering like what it was like for me when I was 18 and I got out here. Even the class that I teach at USC is actually the class I wish I had, mm-hmm. and that I needed when I was at USC, but I didn't have, or they didn't have it there. So it's really the impetus for all of it. So anyway, that's kind of how the fee stuff works. It just depends what you get. If they're doing your contracts, mm-hmm. they're always going to charge. The reason is because you're going to have to hire a lawyer, no matter what you do. You're going to have to hire one. Suppose you could do it on your own, but it wouldn't be. I wouldn't
advisable
to do it. Yeah. So you're going to pay one way or another. And what we're doing is we have all that in house, as opposed to just being a pure rep without doing the contracts, because the 10%ers typically will have to pair you up with a lawyer. And by the way, when you're paying that lawyer, if they're referring a lawyer, they're probably getting kind of a fee,
a kickback
mm-hmm. that you don't even know about.
Right? Oh, of course.
Yeah,
that's the way the system's played.
Getting paid, you just don't know about it. So with us, we just happen to be very upfront about it and say, well, here's what it is. These are the actual costs of doing this. And, then if you get into a good festival, let's say the Austin, well, obviously the big four, like, talked about. But let's say you get into a smaller but great festival like Austin or
Telluride or
Cinequest. Well, Telluride for sure. But we go often to those festivals. We don't charge anymore to do any of that, but we go. And, our advice is rock solid on all sorts of things because we've kind of been there before. But, these things cost. So.
Yeah, of course, there's a cost involved with it. So, well, thank you for explaining that a little bit more and getting your perspective on what a real producer's rep does,
Sure.
And let everybody understand what that situation is. Now, in your past, you have worked with a lot of people, but specifically, you had the opportunity to work with a mega movie star as a producer, Mr. Tom Cruise. What was it like working with Tom Cruise on the level that you were working with him on?
Well, that was really kind of one of the best times of my life. It was so amazing. Look, I'm actually a working class kid. My parents were definitely. I'm an immigrant. First of all, I was born in Poland. And my dad was a machinist. My mom was a hairstylist. I went to USC on scholarship, USC Film School. That was all scholarship and stuff. Thank God. But but I come from a very working class kind of area of Detroit, and working for Tom Cruise was incredible.
I'm sure.
Flying around on private jets, dealing with CAA and, the chairman of CAA, because Agent was the co-chairman of CAA.
Yeah.
His publicist was the number one publicist in the business, Pat Kingsley from PMK. And, we were, it was at the height of his career. When I was there, it was Mission 1, Mission 2, Jerry Maguire, and Eyes Wide Shut. And then the movie he produced, which was Without Limits, which is I was on set for that. So, I mean, it was eye-opening. In hindsight, hindsight's always a good thing, I suppose. But these companies, they're small, first of all. So when you have it's the same today as it was then. When you have a movie star, you're only talking about a company of like 10 or so people, maybe as many as 15 if it's big. Or as little, I suppose, as like 6. But it's a round number of around 10 that work at these companies. And it is very high pressure because, at that time he was for sure the biggest movie star in the world. And there's a lot of demands and, there's a lot of money to be made. And the choices that you make are important, because everybody wants you in their movie. And a lot of people will profit from whatever choices you make. So it was. I would describe it as extremely a very high pressure place for sure.
That sounds interesting. And you've made obviously a lot of contacts along the way, being in those kind of situations.
Yeah, because everyone's calling. So studio heads. I mean, literally chairmen of studios or chairwomen of studios. The heads of all the major everybody wants you because you're Tom. And what was interesting to me is, I would read Variety, or nowadays you're reading Deadline Hollywood, but you read like so-and-so was cast in, like Matt Damon gets this film or Kevin Costner gets this film or what have you, Tom Hanks gets this film. And the truth of the matter is that we had seen that script and it had been offered to Tom Cruise probably 6 months or more before it ever got offered to anybody else and it appeared in the trades. We would see everything. So all these announcements with all these other, very big movie stars, Will Smith, what have you, these are scripts we had seen 6 months, 9 months before it was ever announced that somebody else was in it.
So you were working at the top of the mountain.
What's funny is it didn't feel that way when you were there. Because there's always, working at these companies, there's always there's concentric circles. And, obviously my boss, who was Tom's partner, Paula Wagner, she's in the center of it. And we're, there's rings outside of that. We were close to the center, but yes, I mean, we were at Paramount, so I suppose we were at the top of the mountain. But like I said,
literally,
yeah, but it really doesn't feel that way. It's just a lot of work, a lot of script reading, a lot of production, just a lot of, you're working so much that you lose sight of the outside world in a sense. You actually lose sight of where you are in a way, because you still have to do the actual work, and you're not. I wasn't his producing partner or anything. I'm not the head of the studio. I'm working at his company, and yes, I was one of the 10 or so people, core people there for a long time. But you lose sight just because you're buried in so much work.
Now, with Eyes Wide Shut, were you involved with Eyes Wide Shut at all?
No.
No.
So no. With Stanley Kubrick is always an exception, I think.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
We were not involved with that movie. No.
That was all Stanley.
It was all Stanley. It was going on at the same time as, Mission 1, Mission 2, Jerry Maguire, and Without Limits. Those were all happening around the same time. But, Tom, actors are busy. They can do more than one thing. And Tom's also a producer. They could do more, they do numerous movies every year. So that was while everything else was going on.
But I heard that, but I also heard that, Stanley basically locked up Tom for 18 months?
Well, that's true, but Tom was still, he is a producer, So although Tom may have been, acting in that movie, he's still reading scripts for his next movie. He's still reading scripts of writers he wants to hire to, write Mission Impossible 2.
Yeah, he's working.
Well, we were in development on Mission 2 so it's not like he was only doing that. We were in active development on Mission 2 while he was there. He was reading and meeting with, writers and directors for Mission 2. So that was obviously the big impetus, because Mission 1 had just come out. And also he was producing a movie he wasn't even in, Without Limits. And believe me, every single day he was on the phone we were on the set. Paula Wagner was on the phone with him every day, every single day. Back then we faxed pages to him, even small changes. Every page of a script that was changed in any way was sent to him. He was overnighted back then. Back then it was videotapes. We couldn't do what we can do now.
All right.
Because we're talking about 1995 here.
Sure. Internet was just a baby.
Yeah, we were overnighting, all the dailies to him. I mean, and we're not talking like FedEx. We're talking like private couriers to get it right to Tom, on a set where he was, in England for Eyes Wide Shut. Everything was overnighted to him. He was incredibly involved. So basically, maybe producing Without Limits may have kept him sane, maybe while he was
exactly
working with. Maybe that's what it was. I mean, I don't know, exactly, but I'm sure that probably was a good thing for him to be doing while Stanley was, doing 200 takes, because the shooting ratio is so high. Yeah. 200 takes of a scene.
Oh, we could talk about Stanley for hours. I'm a huge Kubrick fan, and that's one of my favorite Kubrick movies. Believe it or not, I love Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, I have some stories I could tell you then, because we would hear stuff that would like mind blowing. But yeah, so I'm sure the production company side, the development side of all the other things Tom was doing probably kept him sane while he was doing Eyes Wide Shut. Like I said, we had nothing to do with that. So,
Sure.
So, Stanley could do his thing. Tom was in it, and I think he was very happy to be in it. But Tom has, a life outside of that, and that was all the other movies we were working on.
Now, in another interview, I heard you discuss the two paths an indie filmmaker can take when making a film, the making money path and the jumpstart your career path. Can you tell us a little bit more about both of those paths?
Okay. Yes. It's and this isn't like set in stone. This isn't like lanes of a highway. But yes, there seem to be two paths that I've seen for indie films. So if all you want to do is just make money, there are certain kinds of films you make, and there are certain kinds of things you put into those movies. And they tend to be more genre movies or action movies or horror movies or what have you. Or you could make a pure, for instance, most people don't know this, but making a pure family film is probably the best thing you could do. Like, the franchise that no one ever talks about, probably one of the most successful franchises out there.
Beethoven.
No,
Which
but
one?
close.
Uh-huh.
Air Bud.
Oh God, I can imagine those Air Buds. Yes, they just keep going and going and going.
Yes, but look who produced the original Air Bud. If you look, it's Bob and Harvey Weinstein.
Right.
Yes.
That wasn't a Miramax thing. That was a Disney thing.
I think, yes, it was. Or Dimension or something. Yeah. Look it up.
Jesus.
Bob and Harvey Weinstein are the executive producers. Because, the secret in this industry, it's true. If you make like a dog movie or a pure kids movie, it will make a lot of money. And so now the Air Bud movies are all owned by Disney, but that's because Disney bought Miramax.
Sure.
They got it out from Miramax. But there's so many of those Air Bud movies. Anyway, if you make movies like that, it won't necessarily propel your career as a director because you're going to be looked at in a certain way, but you'll make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
The riskier bet is to try and propel your career as a director. And for that, you pretty much have to make basically a major festival film, a Sundance film, South by, Toronto, Tribeca. And those movies tend to be more dramas. They do have a midnight section, so you could get away with it, but they're kind of elevated movies in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
And they're much riskier because making a drama, if you don't get one of the big four festivals, will probably
die a
be a
miserable
financial disaster.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very tricky as to how to go about doing it. But those are the two paths. The other thing is, what do people really look for in director clients? So for writers, they're looking for your voice. And for a director, they're looking for your point of view. So they want to see, how you direct, scenes and actors and stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that goes to Sundance. So that's why you have, all these, look at the Russo brothers. Their first movie was actually at Slamdance. Then they had a movie in Sundance, and then their careers took off. Same thing with Colin Trevorrow, who had a big Sundance movie, and then, Jurassic, right from a Sundance movie, Safety Not Guaranteed.
Which was a great little movie, by the way. I just saw it the other day. It's awesome.
But a little movie, a character piece. Not very profitable. If it didn't go into Sundance, it probably wouldn't have been profitable at all.
No, it didn't have any major stars. Mark Duplass is the only, I think, yeah.
And then he goes to Jurassic World. And this is normal. There are other examples of this. It goes way back even. Bryan Singer, who directed X-Men, he did a movie called Public Access, which is a drama, really. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a mystery drama that went to Sundance. And it was Sundance that gave him his break. So, you want to go for that, but it's very difficult. It's not, very few movies get to go to Sundance. So that's why it's a risky path. So that's why I say to people, you have to know what you want when you start making a movie. Or even Rian Johnson, by the way, who did Brick. Mm-hmm. This is his first movie, went to Sundance, and now he's directing Star Wars Episode 8. And, I know kind of his whole story. His was it took longer to get to Star Wars, but Sundance makes a difference. So you have to know what you're doing from the onset. And what I tell people is actually, and this goes back to producer reps again, by the way, you should not be making a feature film to make money.
No, it's a worst idea ever.
Right. And that's why this world of really good producer reps or consultants or what have you, we all know this. And that's why we can charge a little bit also, because we can give you the right advice. It's not about making, a return on investment. It really isn't. It's about propelling your career. And that's why, again, we focus on festivals a lot. And that's why we focus, on getting you, good distribution. And good distribution doesn't always make a lot of money either. But the festival thing really does matter, because if you get in the right festivals, it can really help you. Mm-hmm. And so we focus a lot on that. So yeah, those two paths are interesting. But if all you want to do is make money, then yes, make a movie like Air Bud. Or if you make a horror film, because everybody thinks, I'll just make a horror film, I'll make a lot of money. But that's not true, because there's a glut of horror films.
But there's not a glut of Air Bud movies, yeah.
Yeah, you have to make an either elevated horror film, or you have to give us something we just haven't seen before.
Can you give us an example of an elevated horror film for the audience?
Well, people will say, Saw, the original Saw was a Sundance movie, by the way. It was in Sundance.
Midnight, yeah.
Yeah.
Blair Witch, all right.
Right. Blair Witch as well, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know that I would call Blair Witch elevated. Blair Witch was just new at the time because of the way,
it was an anomaly, basically. And it created a genre. Yeah, it created a genre.
Yeah, because look, here's why you know it's an anomaly. Because look at what the guys who made it have gone on to do, which there hasn't been anything really major.
Mhm.
Whereas the Saw guys,
Oh,
look
yeah.
at their careers, have taken off. So they were not an anomaly.
No.
It's Lee Whannell and James Wan. They've both like done it more than once now. I mean,
Mhm.
look at their credits.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So that's how you know, they're not one-hit wonders. They know what they're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that, I guess you could call it, an elevated just means that, let me just put this is how I phrase it. If you're going to make a horror film, just make sure this is the film. If you're only going to make one film in your entire life, and you get one shot, put as much effort, into that horror film, and pretend it's the only film you'll ever make. Because actually, chances are it might be actually the only film you ever make.
Mm-hmm.
Put as much effort and time into that as you would, like, if you were writing.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
I don't know, Dead Poets Society or Amadeus or
Mm-hmm.
or Shakespeare in Love or any The Revenant, whatever movie you think is an awesome movie that won an Oscar, The Birdman or what have you. Put as much effort into your horror movie as you would into that, and that will probably make it better. And that includes with the script, by the way, because it all does start with the script. So yeah, that's my long-winded answer to like the two paths to take.
Now with that, which is something I kind of talk about a little bit as well, is finding your voice and finding your point of view, like you pointed out. Can you go a little bit more into dealing like the voice of a screenwriter, and to many ways a voice or a perspective of a director? Because obviously the people who've all made it in this business, they all have very strong points of view or very strong voices. I mean, Tarantino's voice it's like a bullhorn, and Scorsese and even Spielberg and Fincher, they all have such a strong, distinct point of view, voice, style. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think a lot of filmmakers that make movies today, they just slap stuff together and try to copy somebody else, or have no real point of view. They're just kind of putting it out there just to say, hey, I made a movie.
Well, let me give you an example of voice. I'm actually, because I start my one class at USC tonight, so I happen to have my syllabus and everything in front of me. I'm going to give you an example. I will attribute this to a good friend of mine. His name is Alex Litvak, and he's a screenwriter. You could look him up. He's made written some good movies. He was also an executive at 20th Century Fox. Mm-hmm. He's a great guy. But he said this once in one of my classes, and I wrote it down because I liked it so much. So here's an exact example of it, and then we can talk about it. Mm-hmm. It'll be short. So here's a very good, well-written piece of screenplay, which I'll read to you in a second. There's nothing wrong with it. It's well-written. But it doesn't have voice, and I'll read to you the version that does. Mm-hmm. So here we go. Ready? Mm-hmm. Interior Jack's apartment night. Jack is asleep on his couch. There's a knock at his front door. He stirs awake as Jane enters. Perfectly competent, well-written.
Sure.
Fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it lacks voice. So here's voice. Ready? Mm-hmm. Interior Jack's apartment night. What a shithole. That's actually a compliment. Jack's asleep on his couch. There's a knock at his front door. He stirs awake. Jane enters. She can stop traffic. Air traffic.
Oh, Jesus.
Right? So the difference is, yes, it has tone. First, there's tone, mm-hmm. there's attitude in mm-hmm. the writing, mm-hmm. but if you're listening to it, it's visual. Mm-hmm. Like he says, "What a shithole." Instantly in your mind, you're thinking, "Okay, his apartment's a shithole." You can picture it. Jane enters. They don't describe Jane; they just say she can stop traffic, air traffic, and in your mind, whatever the reader or listener, thinks is the hottest woman that could walk in the room will come up in your mind. It's mm-hmm. visual. Mm-hmm. So a voice is a couple things. As a writer and then as a director, it's different. But because obviously you have visuals. But as a writer, it's about tone and feeling. And the ability to make somebody picture something in their mind. But it's also the ability to make somebody feel. Ultimately, your voice is this entire business ultimately is, can you make either the real reader feel something or the viewer in a movie theater feels something. It's all about feelings. Really, that's all it is. And people who have a voice are a master of getting the reader to feel something. But one way of doing that is obviously getting them to picture it. So, that has a lot to do with voice. The other thing is don't self-censor. There ultimately are no rules. Yes, you have to know how to write a good screenplay. So read a lot, and I mean a lot of screenplays. But really, there are no rules. So you don't have to necessarily be grammatically correct. You can say anything. Never self-censor. And I always say in class, I mean, look at Bridesmaids. You've got a fat chick taking a dump in a sink. There's nothing you can write that people in Hollywood will get offended by or whatever. It's like, if you want to be funny, then be funny. If you want to be serious, then be serious. But never self-censor, and take risks. And just, you kind of want to be yourself. If you can be yourself in your writing, then that's what you want to be.
And it's, I think, is a general thing as an artist, anywhere, in any form, is about being yourself, and also the confidence. Confidence is so, when like that second piece that you wrote, it took a lot more balls to write that kind of way than it did the first time. And you could call it voice, but it's also confidence, because, what a shithole. A lot of people are like, I'm not going to curse in a script. What am I going to, but that's not the proper way. I haven't read it like that. You see, you already that little voice craps into your head, but then you got that guy who's just really confident, just like, boom, what a shithole. What a this or that. And that's what people, I think, in a lot of ways, really are attracted to.
I actually talk about confidence in class. So you totally nailed it. There's another word for it too, though. Confidence is the right word. But it's called being in control of your story. It's like when you're giving a pitch to somebody, or when you're talking to somebody about what you want to make, they have to have a sense that you are in control of your story. And being in control of it means you are confident. And yes, it's like dating. I mean, there's always analogies to Hollywood and dating. Yes, if you can be confident, that's not cocky per se, but confident. That shows strength, and it shows that you really know your characters. You control the scene, and that's also what I mean by don't self-censor. Don't.
Yeah, I know. A lot of young writers and a lot of filmmakers will censor themselves before they ever come out the gate. And I'm like, look, other people are going to try to censor you. Why are you going to try to censor yourself before you come out the gate?
Let the other people do that, because that's what happens. Good scripts get watered down. By the way, one of the best scripts I ever read a long time ago, and anybody in the business back then would tell you, this was in the mid-'90s again, was a script called East Grand Rapids High. Do you know what that was?
No, which one was that?
East Grand Rapids High I still have a draft of that, by the way.
Oh, it's American Pie?
It's American Pie.
It's American Pie. I thought so, yeah.
When we read that, because I was a creative executive at the time, people in the business, we were passing that script around like it was butter, like it was chocolate.
Oh, it got sold for a record amount, I remember.
Yes, because, everyone sees that movie in the sense of having seen the movie, right? And seeing the sequels, which obviously aren't as good. But when you read that fresh, and there was no movies or nothing to look at, it was incredibly well written, and not censored, believe me, at all. And it was hilarious. And, it kept hitting a nerve on like, oh yeah, I did that, or yeah, that's funny, that happened to me, or somebody I knew, blah, 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 blah. And it was not self-censored. So just, go for it.
Right. I mean, there was that movie, which I heard the script was amazing. I read the script. It was amazing. And it was much different than the movie was Last Boy Scout. Shane Black's script.
Yes.
The original was, it sold for like 3.5 million back in the day or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was remarkable. And they changed the Damon Wayne character from a wisecracking black guy from a surfer dude, if I remember correctly, in the original script or something like that. Stuff like that happens all the time. But at least Shane didn't water down his version. He just
I don't think he's another one of these guys. Like if you read his scripts, it's awesome. By the way, there's a really good article I think in Hollywood Reporter right now about Shane Black and his heydays. And he's coming back now because he has a new movie coming out.
I can't wait to see it too. It looks amazing.
Yeah,
nice
but you know, these guys know how to write.
Oh yeah, they do.
There was no holds barred.
Yeah, no question. So to go back to film festivals real quick, would you suggest that if a film, if a filmmaker gets into let's say a Sundance, and they are not on track to get let's say a distribution deal, like because I know a lot of Sundance winners that never got a deal because of the kind of tone of the movie or something along those lines. Would you suggest that they like maybe do a quick 1 week self-distribution, digital streaming version of it, like, hey, it's only after Sundance special, only a week later, you can watch it here, because all the attention is going to be on them. They'll probably never get as much attention on the film ever again. So would you leverage that?
I don't know that it works. I'll tell you, Slamdance is doing that now. Like Slamdance can actually distribute your movie for you because they're trying to make that work. Sundance hasn't quite done that yet. Tribeca's doing that, because Tribeca Films also distributes a little bit. It's interesting.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
The real problem is that it's an ocean of movies now. It's all about marketing, really. It's about getting people's attention. So I don't know that doing it on your own works. I have to tell you, I have never seen it. I've only seen it work in very specific forms. I'll tell you what they are because I have my. It's just it doesn't seem to work with narrative films at all. It kind of works with in the non-narrative space. Like there was a movie about like the education system that's making a fortune right now. That's all self-distributed.
Yeah, docs do very well with that model. I've seen many docs do extremely well.
Yeah, they seem to do better, but narratives, not so much. I'm actually trying to find the name of it's slipping my mind.
Well, I mean, from my experience, there have been films, independent films that have done well. It's self-distributed, but again, their budget levels have to be extremely low. The audience that they've created.
Can you remember any of them? Because
Camp Dakota, I remember, was one that they did. That was a bunch of YouTube stars got together, but they had a huge audience. So they
had the marketing because of the YouTube stuff.
But that's my point. Like there is a way to do it, but it takes a lot of work, and you've got to build up an audience, and you've got to be able to leverage people's audiences to be able to sell them and so on. So it depends on the budget. If you make that movie for $5 million, it's not going to make money. But if you made that movie for, let's say, $100,000, and they have 5 million followers, or the group of them have 15 million followers, chances are you're going to be able to make your money back between that and merch.
By the way, I believe that's true. Although I also know the opposite. I do know some other YouTubers who have tried it. They're a very highly ranked channel in the comedy space, and they made their first feature, and they got no traction. They even told me it's different. It's so interesting because I asked them at the same time, like, you guys have,
5 million people, right?
Whatever. A lot of followers, right? And a lot of hits. And they have some very successful YouTube series. Literally, if I said it right now, some of your
mouths will drop, right?
would know it, I'm sure. And I asked them, well, why? And they said to me, look, we even tried to fund, we tried to crowdfund the movie. That was one of their things because they had so many followers, and it failed. They didn't get that much money. And they said, look, their audience wants, a certain thing. They want the YouTube series, that they've been producing. They'll watch that. But when it comes to, because that's all free, mind you. But when it comes to, hey, putting actual money down into a crowdfunding campaign, the turnover from like fans to like contributors was shockingly low.
Well, no,
and the same with getting distributed. It took them, I would say, a year and a half to finally get distributed. And honestly, I don't know that the movie was profitable.
Well, which was interesting is I actually had I was talking to the head of Seed and Spark, which is a crowdfunding website, Emily, and she was telling me, I'm like, what's the most successful one you guys have had? And they said, well, it was this web series, and they were able to generate like $150,000 crowdfunding. So it all depends. It's a case by case basis. It all depends on the audience.
Case.
Yeah, because if you're into like slapstick, ha 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 videos, and you might have 5 million people who just like enjoy that, but they're not really into that. They're not going to put out. But if you have put out cash on a crowdfunding thing or support your feature, but there's just all depends on the personality. It depends on the channel. Depends on the YouTube celebrity to what kind of content it is. So it can be done, but it is a very strategic thing to do, and it takes time to build up, even once you have it.
Right, and I don't know. Well, here's the thing. The bottom line is, I don't know that there is a path that if you do A, B, C, all the way to Z, that you will get the result. I think it's more about that there is luck as part of it. Right place, right time, right movie, right. You cannot believe me. If anyone has tried to control their career in this business, their path, it was me. Believe me.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't do it. And I know lots of people. And it's just certain opportunities come up. Same thing with films. So I don't think you can ever mirror anyone else's success.
It's tough.
You do have to. There's a direction, you have to go west. Okay. So you're going west, but there's lots of different paths to go west. And yes, some people go, through a more, worn path, but that doesn't, but there's also, a lot of people, if it's a worn path. So predators and bad guys know people are going down that path. You might get hit on that path, is a bad analogy.
No, it's a good analogy, actually. I completely understand what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's you can only do what you can do, and you have to hope that you're meeting the right people along the way, and it's never the same right people every single time. But you can only, educate yourself to the best that you can, embark on it, know what you're getting into, be realistic, and if you succeed at the end, great. Try and help other people. If you don't succeed, well, it's kind of like when you get knocked down, get back up and do it again.
I think the best advice I've ever heard was just do the best work you can at all times. And you really won't know because you'll plan some things out, but like anything in life, plans go out the window, and you'll meet this one person, and this one person knows this other person. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I met you at a Starbucks, and oh, well, let's go have the drinks. And all of a sudden, oh, here, I love your movie. Let me give it over to my friend. And who's my friend? Oh, I just happen to know Will Smith. I went to school with Will. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden things like that happen. It happens all the time.
Yes.
But you just have to put yourself in a position to be at the right place at the right time with the right project, movie, idea, things like that. And I always tell people, the very famous, legendary, mythical story of Robert Rodriguez with El Mariachi. He was at the right place at the right time with the right movie. And if he shows up today, I'm not sure if he gets the action.
I think that's right. You have to have your at bats. You just have to get out there and produce whatever it is you're producing. Like, I'm a big believer, I think about this all the time because I do all kinds of things in the business, and I haven't done all the things I've wanted to do. And I'm still very hungry for doing some of those things. But you just, it's about, ultimately to me, what I value the most is creators, so whatever it is, but you are creating something, whether it's a book, a YouTube series, a feature, or whatever. You've created it. It is a big deal. Yes, eventually you could go on and make, Civil War, which the Russo brothers are doing, but they've already announced their next film, and it's an original film that they want to do. Because that's always, for true filmmakers, that's always going to be there. Yes, you'll go and make the big movies because it's fun, and part of this has to be fun. But ultimately, you want to create something new that, because really it's Stan Lee, right? It all just goes back to Stan Lee. He's the creator. So, you just, that's what I value, is the people who can just create something from nothing and put something out there for other people to enjoy. And that goes back to distribution for indie films. Ultimately, because there is no one that can guarantee you will profit. Because look, different people make a movie a different way. Like Alex, you're embarking on a movie.
Yes.
And I might embark, let's say, on exactly the same movie. I bet you can make that movie cheaper and better than I could. The same movie, because you know all the technical stuff a lot better than I do. And I think you know the ins and outs of that better. So you're going to we can make exactly the same movie. I bet you could bring it in let's say, whatever, you can bring it in for $1 million. I bring in exactly the same movie for $2 million, right? So obviously you're going to have a profit before I will with the exact same movie. Well, that happens all the time with indie films. So it's not about profitability. It's about making the best movie you can make, getting it into the best festivals, getting people to see it to propel your career. That's really what it is. If you want to just make money, okay, well then go make Air Bud.
Make lots of Air Buds. Yeah.
Make Air Bud, or go make, which is completely fine movie. I actually I have kids. I wouldn't mind making one really, really good Air Bud movie for them to enjoy. But you're just going to be making those kinds of movies. Or if you just want to make B thrillers, you can make money with B thrillers. You can do that. But that won't necessarily elevate your career or get you an Oscar or get you, like the Russo brothers, into the stratosphere of a career.
Right. Exactly. Now, with that said, what do you think, in your opinion, has changed the most in the film distribution landscape, and what has stayed the same? Because a lot of things have changed over the last
the biggest change.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Well, it's funny because a lot of things have actually changed the same too. Really, the biggest change is there's just more and more and more movies. It's like there used to be, tens of thousands of screenplays every year to get through. Now there's tens of thousands of movies. There's so many movies. So that's what's changed. What hasn't changed is, I think, actually distribution hasn't really changed that much. It's all the pipes are still, yes, we now have the internet and all that stuff, but as you, I'm sure, well know, Alex, those pipes, the internet pipes, are controlled by the major media companies. They just are. What people, so people now, instead of when I was young, we only had 3 channels. Okay, well, we have more channels now, but really everyone's still only watching like Netflix or HBO or whatever. They're still basically watching a smallish number of channels.
Because there's only so many hours in the day.
Right. So, and those pipes, I don't know what the right word is. I'm searching for the right word. But those pipes are monetized and controlled by corporations. And DIY, to my knowledge, has not worked, because I can't think of one that has. The only exception being that one Judd Apatow one that he produced.
Oh no, Louis C.K. put out his stand-up concert.
Okay, Louis C.K.'s famous already.
Right, that's my point. But for someone like him who has that audience, he's able to monetize it fairly easily. And there's been a lot of guys who've done that on the comedy side, because they were like, well, wait a minute, why do I have to go through Comedy Central? I could just put it out on myself and I control everything.
Sure, but you have to get to that level. Like most of us are not at that level.
Right.
So that's the thing. We're really dependent on festivals. True indie filmmakers.
It's very again, and the festival, in my opinion, is only there not only to propel and to showcase filmmakers, but in the right festival, all the eyes of the industry are on that festival. So that's why the festivals matter, is because
it's discovering new talent. That's right. That's the whole point. That's why I put so much emphasis into helping people get into,
one of the big 4. Right. Exactly. And that's always the key with it's just getting eyeballs on your movie, and festivals are still a very, very big part of that. And if you can find other ways of getting eyes on movies, whether that be putting it on, a lot of guys do direct a short that's a killer short, and they put it up online and it goes viral, and all of a sudden some executives start seeing it and like, hey, you come over here and direct. Who's the guy?
By the way, you don't even have to make a feature. That's one of the things I'm going to be talking about in class in a couple weeks. I don't really know why make a feature. If you can make an incredibly good short and achieve the same results as a feature.
Again, it all depends. It's all case by case.
Yes, it is case by case. I completely agree. But I'm just saying that if what people are thinking, I have to make a feature to prove that I can make a feature, that's just not true. I'll give you an example right now. Wes Ball, who directed Maze Runner, he was a special effects guy. He made a short film called Ruin. That's what got him that directing job. And I can think of other people. I did a whole interview with Luke Greenfield, who directs comedies on The Insiders. And he made one of the best shorts ever. No visual effects, just freaking great. I think you can find it on YouTube. I have the link to it, but just look it up. It's called The Right Hook, and just Google that and maybe Luke's name, Luke Greenfield, and hopefully it come up. And that's the movie. It's a short film that got him his first feature. And so, and that movie is really good. You'll see it and like, holy cow, this is a great movie. And it's like, sometimes I look at it like when you make a feature, you're just giving yourself more time to stumble and fail. Whereas if you make a really good short film for 10 minutes, it's kind of controlled and contained environment as opposed to 110 minutes, There's
a lot of different opinions of that. I mean, I know a lot of guys. I've done some shorts that have done obscene amounts of business and a lot of attention and all that kind of stuff years ago. And then I kept getting, can you do a feature? Can you direct a feature? We have to see you do a feature. And then vice versa, I don't know. There's just so many different.
Right. And that's where agents and managers come in.
Yes, absolutely.
On your team. That's like I said, we're all going west.
How you get there.
There's a lot of different ways to get there. And we all want to get to Hollywood, right?
Right.
So we know the end point. There's a lot of ways to get to Hollywood.
No, there's no question about it. Now, I'll ask you one last question before I ask you my standard 3 last questions.
Good, because my pain medication's wearing off.
Okay.
I was in a very bad accident this weekend.
Oh, okay.
I was in the ER, so I'm actually on pain medication.
Okay.
And I can feel it wearing off.
All right, so I'll hurry then. Okay. What would you say to someone who loves movies and just wants to get into the business and make a living in the business? Like someone just fresh, green, right off the boat.
Well, I strongly believe you have to come to Los Angeles. I believe that you have to make a lot of friends. And I believe you should help your friends. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, I could tell you the actual steps and things you should do, but it comes down to that.
Those are the core things you need to do.
Yeah.
And because those friends are the ones that are going to help you get your projects made, get you connected to other people, and you help you, they help
jobs, everything,
the whole ball of wax, and that gets you started. All right. So what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
Grass is always greener, or seems to be. You look at other people and their careers or their success or whatever in life or whatever it is. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Just worry about what you're doing.
Great advice. What are your 3 favorite films of all time? No particular order.
Well, my favorite film of all time is E.T. I really have one. It's that. Then I would say I don't put them in any order after E.T. I only have one favorite film. That's that. And then I would say, it's my generation. So, I love Star Wars.
Sure.
I love, Dead Poets Society, Toy Story, Forrest Gump, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then, some movies that other people don't talk about much, but I love like Amadeus.
I love Amadeus.
Amadeus is also really phenomenal.
Those are all good ones.
Yeah.
And
it's the Lucas Spielberg generation, Zemeckis, Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now where can people find you?
Oh, well, I'm easy to find. Well, you can Google my name, which is hard. Sebastian Twardosz. Good luck. But you could just, I guess the easiest way is just Google Circus Road Films. Okay. Because that takes you to our website for our company, and my email is right there. Okay. Or, my email is just seb@circusroadfilms.com. All right. Or you just email Sebastian. I actually have a website. Yeah. It's just www.sebastiantwardosz.com.
I'll put that in the show notes so nobody needs to figure out how to spell your last name.
Yeah, it's not but the website's good because it has some of my links to all my shows on there, links to my classes, link to my Facebook. I have a really good Facebook page. Actually, this would be great. I think it's good anyway. It's just called The Insiders on Facebook, and it's got kind of like a Godfather like icon thing on it, the hands with the cross. Anyway, I'm pretty easily findable.
I'll put all those links in the show notes, guys. Sebastian, I know you're in pain, man, so thank you so much for doing this interview, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it a lot. And by the way, your site and all the things that you do, I think are phenomenal.
Oh, thank you, man.
Sincerely. I mean, really good. I have to get to know you a little bit better, and I'm going to invite you to my class because I want you to speak.
Oh, thank you so much.
No, for sure. I just want to kind of wrap my head around like the right place to bring you in at. But I think what you're doing is really great. So congrats.
Thanks again, my friend. I appreciate it and feel better.
Thank you. Bye.
It's always nice to listen to someone who's been in the business and know how the game is played and kind of gives you a little bit of inside information on what it takes to actually get through some of those doors. And, you know, like everything, it's not an easy thing, but if you continue to work hard and understand the rule book on certain things in Hollywood and certain things about the film business, it makes your journey in the film business a heck of a lot easier. And listening to a podcast like this or listening to speakers like Sebastian, who have some inside information, who have gone through the ringer a little bit and the business kind of beating them up, it's always good to learn from somebody who's gone ahead of you. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show. In the process or in the journey. Now I wanted to give a big shout out to all of the Indie Film Hustle tribe members who have been emailing me and thanking me for the film school and all the courses that we're offering them, the new Indie Film Hustle Film School that we've set up with kind of curating all the great new courses, things that we produce and things that we found online. We've created a bunch of new courses. One, how to write a screenplay by the writer of Fight Club, Jim Urls. Also, how to produce an Academy Award nominated independent film from the producers of The Beast of the Southern Wilds. It's a whole course on how they did these things. So we also have courses by Kevin Spacey, Dustin Hoffman on acting and the actor's process, which I've taken, and they are awesome. It really gives you as a director an insight to the actor's process and really helps you understand where they're coming from, and you can work better with your actors. So definitely check it out, indiefilmhustle.com/film school. And currently we're having a 30% off sale on many of the courses if you just use the coupon code FilmHustle30. And also thank you to all the tribe members who have signed up for our Facebook group and are really interacting and really talking to each other and connecting with other filmmakers and learning more and more from what we're doing here at Indie Film Hustle. And it's free, so all you got to do is go to indiefilmhustle.com/Facebook. And guys, next week I have an announcement to make on the next episode of the podcast. So definitely check out next week's podcast, episode number 76. It will be a doozy, and I hope you guys like what I have to say. I think you will. And it's, again, trying to provide more and more value to you guys and helping you in the process of being a filmmaker and surviving and thriving in the film business. As always, keep that hustle going. Keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.